coming, the sun's zooming in, meltdown expected, the wheat is good there, engines stop running, but I have no fear, 'cause London is drowning.
Hello everybody and welcome to the By the Minute Arsenal podcast. It's our 42nd, which I think means I'm obliged to make some kind of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy comment of some description. We can't promise the answer to life, the universe and everything, but we can discuss a 3-0 win over Bournemouth, which is essentially the next best thing. We, in this instance, are myself, Matt H, and also Matt V. Hello, Matt.
Afternoon, evening, whatever it is. It's a shame. I feel sorry for Pete, who's not here this afternoon. He's done a hard slog with 2 really bad defeats, and he hasn't been able to enjoy all the happiness that comes with a rare win.
It's a shame, isn't it? Yes, Pete not able to be with us this week. Hopefully he will be back in the fold next time. We're back, of course, after our exciting international break. I don't know if how much football people watched during this. I ended up watching the second half of France-Luxembourg, just so I saw it was 0-0, and I thought that could be funny. But I'm afraid it just depressed me slightly, because for those who don't know, France did not break through, and Luxembourg held on for a 0-0. But France had 74% possession and were fairly hopeless in front of goal, and I'm afraid it just brought back a number of bad memories. So I fear that was a mistake. Matt, did you watch any interest in the international break?
I had the misfortune of watching some of the England action. I think I managed an hour of the first game against Malta and switched off just before all the goals started. And then I decided to check up on Oxlade-Chamberlain against Slovakia, whoever it was, and it was good to see that he hasn't changed. He was still beating players and then having no idea what to do when vaguely in front of goal, and even messing up a cross or a shot. So it was good to see, even though he's been freed from Arsenal, the problems are still there.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if he's the first person ever to lose his last game for one club 4-0 and then lose his first game for his new club 5-0, which does seem like quite a. I mean, it's a little unfair. I think he only came on at half-time against City at the weekend for Liverpool, but we'll come into that in a second. But let's come to that now. Then we can put the international breaks behind us. There is one more in October. But until then, we are back into the treadmill, as it were, of the Premier League and indeed the Europa League, which we'll come on to a bit later on. But before we get into the result that we've alluded to against Bournemouth, let's have a quick look at the transfer window, such as it was. Well, there was no more incomings, which I think is pretty much what we would have expected. Kieran Gibbs went to West Brom. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, as mentioned, went to Liverpool for 35-40 million, depending on your source. Perez has gone on loan, one of the favourites of the pod last year, but he's off back to Deportivo La Coruña. Joel Campbell's gone on loan. That's not really a surprise, though, is it? That happens in a very regular basis. Sanchez stays, and that perhaps is a mild surprise. There was a bit of faffing on the last day of the transfer window, suggestions that he could go to City if we got a replacement, but because we didn't get a replacement, Thomas Lemar was the name suggested. All a bit of drama, didn't happen. Probably not a surprise to those of us who've been following the team for some years. Matt, any thoughts on now the transfer window's actually closed? Any thoughts on the outcomes? And in some respects, you can say it looks quite good. We got a bit of money for players who weren't going to play anyway, but there wasn't much on the other side of the books, as it were.
Yeah, well, I mean, the deadline day itself was a bit really chaos, because having had no money, we were all of a sudden bidding 92 million for Lemar, having not wanted to spend 50 for him earlier in the transfer window. We then seemed to be entertaining bids for Sanchez. I don't know how likely that was, but it looked like he was going to move. But in the end, that will seem to collapse. We did indeed sell Oxlade-Chamberlain to Liverpool, which makes the decision to play him even stranger against Liverpool. A really weird one, but I think we probably would have wanted to sell some of the players we've sent out on loan. As you said, Campbell, Perez weren't able to do anything with Debussy. Jenkinson was only on loan as well. So I think they'll be disappointed with some of that. I think to finish the transfer window in profit in the current market is probably, I think, is crazy, because any money you have in the bank now, the way transfer fees are going to be inflated, 30 million this summer is going to be worth even less next summer. The transfer fees are just going to keep going up and up, and it's not as though, and we'll come on to like squad depth later, I'm sure, but it's not as though our squad's complete. We've now got Oxlade-Chamberlain's left, looking at very little backup for Bellerin. There's still gaps in midfield, as we said before, so I think it was to be expected, but I'm not sure how wise it is. And Dick Law's now left after a glorious reign. Gazidis looks like he's going to replace him, so not even a new signing there. It's really, it was predictable, the transfer deadline day, but it was a bit depressing.
No, I think that's a very good way of summing it up. It was predictable. I wasn't surprised by anything. And then, yes, a couple of days later, I thought, well, it would have been nice to do something. Although I didn't necessarily have a name. To be frank, I didn't know enough about Lamar. You trust the people who say, yes, he's a good player. Good to have him. But nothing was ever going to come of that realistically, was it? Left so late as it was. So, yeah. We've got what we've got. Holding on to Alexis, many people are very pleased about that, but that may be a slightly sort of Pyrrhic victory if he's gone in a few months anyway. And of course, it all depends on how he plays. And of course, I think people wanted to see some new blood, and I think they're reasonably happy with the two guys we brought in, who we can come on to later. But yeah, a little bit more strength further down the list. We'll get a better idea of that, I think, this week perhaps, and over the next few weeks, with the games starting to come a bit more regularly. So okay, well look, the idea that we didn't have any money and then had lots of money to spend was quite laughable. But that's the way things are being done. It seems that back office, whatever you want to call it, is less than functional, should we say, and there needs to be some work done on that. But again, you come back to the manager, I think, and his sort of control over so many aspects of the club, and for good or bad, that seems to be where we are. He's poo-pooed the idea of a director of football, for example, despite the fact it seems to work well in a number of other places. But let's not go down that route yet. Let's give it a few weeks and see how the team are playing. Well, speaking of how the team are playing, let's get into a game. So after our 2-week international break to brood over the performance, and I use the word performance advisedly, against Liverpool, Arsenal were back in Premier League action on Saturday afternoon at home to Bournemouth, and well, I think we can only describe it as a very comfortable 3-0 win. We managed to score early rather than concede early through Welbeck, who scored early in the first and second half. Lacazette getting one in between, and a very comfortable win, admittedly against a Bournemouth team that were particularly poor. Well, let's start with the team news then. I must admit, there's a lot we could talk about the team news. So Alexis started on the bench, Welbeck and Lacazette were starting, but the name that actually jumped out at me, given everything else that had gone on, was Mustafi, who I was not expecting to see start, given that we had apparently, what should we say, fallen out of love with him over the past couple of weeks. So that sort of took me slightly by surprise. Matt, anything about the team lineup that was of note?
I don't want to simplify things too much, because obviously a lot of factors contribute to results and performances, but it did strike me that playing our left wing back at left wing back and playing Bellerin on the right hand side and actually starting our £50 million striker actually made us look a lot better. We had a lot more balance. As you said, I was a bit surprised. I wasn't sure if we were going to stick with the 3 at the back system. I thought we might change that, especially considering how sort of weak the midfield looked before, but I guess that didn't make too much difference against Bournemouth. I don't think there are that many tactical differences. I just think we were probably able to get away with a more cavalier approach this time, because the midfield is pretty much the same. And yeah, as you said, Mustafi's a very strange one. Looked like he was definitely going to leave, and then he was going to stay, and now he's back to being one of our first choice centre-backs again. So that's very confusing, but I was pretty happy with the team, especially to see our wing-backs play in their right position.
Yep, obviously very. That shouldn't really be a particularly surprising thing, but the way things have worked recently, that has been. Yeah, well, we probably don't need to go into great detail about the whole game, because that idea of it being a very comfortable performance, I think, sort of sums it up. We did go into the lead early. Welbeck sort of bundling it in slightly from a cross from our new Kolasinac playing in the right place. And 2 up in 30 minutes after what I've put in my notes, a very confident Lacazette finish. And from then on, it looked very comfortable. Nice to see nice to see those two guys both scoring, actually.
Yeah, we are such a confidence team. You know, as soon as we get an early goal and start passing it around, all of a sudden we look back to normal. I think Welbeck typifies that. He's certainly a confidence player. They both worked really well up front. You'd say Lacazette perhaps looks a bit more natural in front of goal, a bit more clinical, but you know, Welbeck's second goal, you can't criticise that at all. I mean, he obviously has to end up finishing on the floor, like every Welbeck finished, but I was really impressed with him. I was impressed with both of their work rate too. They both pressed, they both tracked back, and the whole side did just look a lot more up for it. I mean, they probably had to put in a bit of a statement after the Liverpool game, but there was good intensity from the start. And even when we were 3-0 up, we didn't really sit back. We kept pressing Bournemouth, and it probably could have been even more than 3-0 in the end.
It could have been. Bournemouth only had a couple of sort of very short spells of where they looked interested, but I mean, our brief isn't really to cover them, but they really were quite a poor opposition, perhaps ideal given Arsenal getting back into things and wanting to get right some wrongs after the Liverpool game. This doesn't do all of that, of course, but it's a start. The work rate is very interesting because there was that moment in the first half where we could have been 3 up when Welbeck really did well to close down Begovic, who'd been left hanging a little bit by his defence with a bad pack pass, I think it was, and Welbeck really did a really good job to block, to get in there and close the ball down. The ball did come back to Lacazette, but Begovic managed to make a good save, and that's the kind of thing the crowd enjoy, isn't it? That's the kind of thing that gets them going. That's what they want to see, which was nice. It's a shame Pete's not here today because I know he was there, and I was fascinated to ask him about the atmosphere because, as far as I could tell from the stream I was watching, it's all I've noticed this before from going myself. Despite what had happened a couple of weeks ago, it sounded to me pretty positive. Both the support for the team all sounded good. I mean, yeah, right, it helps when you score after 6 minutes. But I didn't notice any. I didn't even hear any negative reaction when Sanchez came on. Maybe that was just the way I heard it. Apparently, there was the odd boo, but I don't know. Did you? My impression was it was a jolly good afternoon for all involved. Really, sort of taken in isolation almost from anything else that may have been happening, whether it was transfers or big defeats to Liverpool.
No, I agree. It definitely sounded like the fans were right behind the team. As you said, the early goal probably helps that. If we just come out slowly and Bournemouth had put a bit of pressure on and we get to like half an hour gone or half time and it's still goalless, it probably wouldn't have stayed that way. We would become a bit restless. But as it was, I think the fans appreciated sort of the effort that the players put in and the intensity of which they came out with, and probably a relief to see us passing the ball around nicely again, because it's been a fair few weeks since we've seen that. But I didn't particularly hear the boos when Sanchez came on like other people have reported. I would have been surprised if there were many people booing him. There'll be plenty of time for that when he does eventually leave.
Yeah.
but for now, I think we should probably get behind him.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And so far on the he only came on for the last, 15 minutes, along with Giroud. The very little bit I saw, he looked as he ever does, maybe a tiny bit off the pace, but then that's understandable given his build-up and how busy he's been in Chile and what have you. So, I don't really doubt he'll give his all, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sure anything else much we need to mention. I suppose the one perhaps dark cloud, particularly given the number of games coming up, was Coquelin's rather odd-looking injury that he managed to get after coming on as a sub. Rather sort of odd jump into the air, but it wasn't that. I'm not sure exactly what the problem is, but it may be keeping out for a while potentially. Do you know any more about that, or any views on the incident? There wasn't really an incident, was there? There was just some odd reaction he had.
I mean, as terrible as it is to say, it did almost make me laugh, because the way he jumped up like a dead salmon, really, it appeared to lose all use of his arms as well and just sort of collapsed. I don't know if his hamstring popped and he had to jump up that high because of that, but I don't know what it was. And there was no doubt whether he was staying on as he trudged straight down the tunnel. I think the way it looked and how quickly he went off, I think that's probably pretty serious. I imagine he'll be out for a few weeks, which, as you said, with Europa League and League Cup coming up, whatever people think about him, we need options in midfield to rotate.
So, he's a funny one, isn't he? He's never really, to my mind, grasped the opportunities that he's had with both hands. He's had runs, of course, but you've always sort of thought I suppose he'd never, what's the word I'm looking for, cemented his role in the team, perhaps. And partly that's, not being there. So that's obviously going to be a fact. So it's a terrible shame, but hopefully it's not going to be out for too long. We had sort of 60% possession. We made nearly 600 passes compared to Bournemouth's nearly 400, looking at some stats here. Czech barely had to do anything. I think there was a couple of saves, but they were picking the ball up as much as anything else. So all in all then, we're pretty happy with that, Coquelin injury aside, but worth noting how poor Bournemouth were again, and they remain pretty near the foot of the table.
Yeah, it was really good. And it's strange because Bournemouth are a team I associate at least with sort of high pressing, would have tried to come and attack us, and the kind of team where they could have certainly made it tough for us, especially considering how frail we've been at the back. But they didn't really offer anything. Defoe wasn't in the game. Defensively they weren't great either. So yeah, probably the perfect opponent for us considering the circumstances.
Yep, and I think you've got to give Welbeck the sort of player of the match for 2 well taken goals, looking busy and not looking quite as, what's the word I'm looking for, untidy, should we say, as he sometimes can be. The first goal was sort of, as you noted, bundled in a bit, but he still looked pretty good and busy. I liked that. I like the fact he seemed to be willing to put the yards in. So, all right. Well, unless you've got anything else on that, we can move on.
Yeah, he almost got a hat-trick, didn't he, with that chip?
It was a lovely chip as well, that one. Yeah, it really was. So unlucky, but I think confidence is a word that suits him and the team. So. Yeah. Very enjoyable afternoon. All right, well, we'll leave that there because it was a nice, comfortable win and with some good performances. Taken in isolation, as I say, I think it was a pretty good afternoon. Just a quick look around the rest of the Premier League or who we think our competitors are. City, as alluded to, gave Liverpool a 5-0 spanking. Spurs won at Everton. Chelsea won at Leicester. We'll come to Chelsea a bit later on, of course. And Man United dropped their first points being held at Stoke on Saturday evening. Any thoughts about any of that, Matt, or shall we just concentrate on Arsenal? I really don't mind either way. I just thought I'd give you the chance to mention anything if you wanted to.
I found United struggling at Stoke amusing, and Mourinho having a strop afterwards with the handshake.
Yes.
Liverpool. Go on. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, but Hughes, I think, does have some previous with that kind of. He winds people up and then has a bit of a moan when they don't shake his hand.
He did it to Wenger, I think, a few years ago. They didn't shake hands after Hughes had been sort of abusing him all game, and then Hughes goes off crying that his hand doesn't get shaken. So
was it far from it for me to defend Mourinho, because that's not what I want to be doing. But Mourinho and Hughes, it's quite a thing. But there's an interesting point, isn't there, about United only drawing it. Obviously we lost at Stoke, but Stoke perhaps aren't quite the team it'll be interesting to see when we play them at home, where we've traditionally had a much easier run of things against. But it's not just us struggling against Stoke. I know it's very early days in the season, but that was interesting to me that was a result. Sorry, you were going to say something about Liverpool. Yeah,
it was good to see them losing heavily after a painful few weeks for us. Obviously, the red card didn't help, and there's been a lot of attention on that. Not quite sure why, considering Mane did. The injury and the pictures of Ederson's face afterwards look horrendous. Obviously it wasn't deliberate, but
I must admit, I looked at it and immediately said to myself, because I was on my own in the room, well, that's a red card. And exactly that, it wasn't deliberate, but it was reckless. And I didn't see any problem at all. I haven't actually seen any pictures of Ederson after the incident, but I can imagine it certainly they took a long time getting him sorted out, didn't they?
Yeah, and Tony Gale, who was on Sky Sports today, and he's usually only seen as a co-commentator on dodgy streams around the world, with possibly the most ridiculous comment, who compared Ederson to Tom Heaton. He said Tom Heaton dislocated his shoulder and walked off waving, and he said Ederson should have manned up, and he wasn't sure why Ederson was on the ground for so long. What a ridiculous comment.
It is. I'm just looking at I've found a picture of Ederson's face. It's horrible, and if you get hit there, that could obviously have, you know, your brain's close to that. Let's put it bluntly. Yeah. So there could be lots of problems there. But, oh well. Well, he's all right. That's the main thing. Apart from it may need a bit of work. But all right then. Well, look, let's move on to looking ahead to the Arsenal week to come. 2 games this week. First of all, we open our Europa League campaign on Thursday at home, Thursday evening at 8 o'clock, I believe, or 8:05, against Cologne. Now, Cologne are rock bottom of the German Bundesliga. Played 3, lost 3. They've only scored 1, and they've conceded 7. Although, of course, I'm well aware, saying that kind of thing, they'll probably come to Arsenal and and do very well. Now, we're doing our predictions, of course. We'll come to Bournemouth in a second, but let's do Cologne first while I'm here. So I'll take this one first. I don't really know enough about Cologne to pretend to be an expert, but I've gone for 3-0 for Arsenal. I think we looked very good last weekend. I think we can continue to look good. I think Cologne, given their current domestic form, may have that to worry about. So I'm going to go with a 3-0 on the basis that it's the Europa League, and whilst we may see some squad rotation, I think we should still have enough at home to, up against anyone. If I can be so bold as to call it the sort of second division of European football, which is where we are ourselves now, I think. That's what I'm going to go for. Pete, who is not able to be with us but has submitted his predictions, has gone for a 2-1 to Arsenal. I don't know his reasoning, but I'm guessing he's gone for the 1 against because he doesn't trust our defence, which is a perfectly logical approach. But he obviously thinks we'll sneak through as well. Matt, what's your prediction and any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see the team we put out. Obviously, imagine Ospina will play. I don't think Koscielny would have played anyway, but he's suspended after his red card against Bayern in our last Champions League game. I reckon Mertesacker comes in, Holding comes in. Wing back, we probably don't have a lot of options to rotate. Don't know if Monreal moves out there, but you think with him probably start at centre back against Chelsea, that might not happen. Do you promote Reece Nelson maybe from the youth squad, but Bellerin probably plays in midfield, especially with Coquelin now out. We have El Neni, I guess. I don't know what fitness Wilshire's in, but I think we're probably going to see Xhaka still play alongside El Neni. And then up front, we've probably got more options. You think Giroud might come in, Iwobi. I don't know if Wenger will want to give Sanchez maybe 55 minutes, 60 minutes, just for some match fitness. Now he's back at Arsenal. Walcott could also play, so I think there's a lot of room for rotation, but there's still going to be a strong squad to put out. So I will go with, again, knowing absolutely nothing about Cologne, I'll be confident. I'll go 4-0 Arsenal.
4-0, blimey, there we are. I'm putting that into the spreadsheet as we speak. That's impressive. Yes, you've done a very good job there of going through the players who might play, whereas I just sort of went for an overall kind of bold stab. I can't disagree with any of that. I think it'll be very interesting to see who plays, particularly if we do see some names that we wouldn't normally see. That will be very interesting. Okay, just to clear up from where we are then. So we all got 1 point for the Bournemouth game. We all said Arsenal would win. None of us said we would win 3-0. Me and Pete had 3-1. You had 2-1. So you continued your lead at the top of the prediction table with 3 points. I've got 2. Pete's got 1. So, but a long way to go. I know Pete's very keen as well to have the cup as a separate option as well. So we'll still have an overall, but we'll also have a cup competition. To me, that just sounds like something else you can lose, but we'll wait and see. Right. So I think we're agreed that we've discussed before. Thursday will be a chance to sort of maybe enjoy a game, not worrying massive amounts about the result. In fact, I saw something Arsene Wenger's already said he's prioritising the Premier League whilst the group stage is still going on. It'd be interesting to see how that actually works out in practice. I don't know if that's confidence or what, but it may just be also a thing he says while he decides what he wants to do next. A game of much more importance, I think we could probably fairly say, is away on Sunday lunchtime, 1:30, away to Chelsea. Now, given this is a big game, we can have a little more than a prediction if we like about this one. Well, Matt, I'll let you go first. Any thoughts and a prediction?
Oh God, I'm scared. As nice as it was to see us win against Bournemouth, I don't think that much has changed for us to go into the Chelsea game with a huge amount of confidence. if he, I don't know if Wenger would be brave enough to go in to that game with three at the back and Ramsey and Xhaka in midfield again. I'm not even sure brave would be the word for that, because Ramsey and Xhaka have proven probably don't provide the defence with enough protection. The thing is, against Chelsea, if this was at Wembley or even at home, we could have a lot of confidence because we've played well against them. Last season we beat them at home and at Wembley, comfortably. We played really well. Unfortunately, at Stamford Bridge, something happens, and I don't remember the last time we won an early game on a Sunday either. So I think the team probably picks itself. I think the only decision is Sanchez over Welbeck. I think Sanchez is probably the safer choice. I think we'll be better than we were against Liverpool, whatever that says. I think we will score, but I think I'm going to have to stick with my tactic of predicting us to lose in big games if I want to keep my lead in this prediction table. So I will go with 2-1 Chelsea, and I'll be honest, that's me being optimistic.
Yes, this is interesting. Well, Pete went for 2-2. I don't know where he's got that from, to be honest, but I like his I think he is more naturally optimistic about some of these things. I've gone for 2-0 to Chelsea, I must be honest. I would love to predict an Arsenal win, and no one will be happier than me if they pull it off. But whilst the Bournemouth game was a very good performance, the Liverpool game is still fresh enough in my memory for a team that then turned out to lose 5-0 to City. I know you shouldn't really make that direct comparison, but to be beaten that easily by a team that then rolled over so easily themselves. A very interesting point about it being Wembley or not, or anywhere other than Stamford Bridge. We've had our days there, but it seems an awfully long time ago now. So I've gone for 2-0 to Chelsea, and I fear that maybe being slightly optimistic too. I think if we get an early goal like we did on Saturday, then you never know. And if we could hold on to a lead for a while, I mean, Burnley managed it on the opening day, didn't they? To beat Chelsea. So, but opening day results were perhaps always a little on the odd side. So, well, there we go. I won't say any more because I don't think I have any more to say. I think the team will be very interesting. I'm assuming it's going to be vaguely what it was this week, with perhaps whether Sanchez starts or not would be interesting. We need top quality performances from Welbeck and Lacazette and Sanchez and Ozil and all the rest of them, really, don't we? So we'll go with that. We'll be pessimistic but hopeful, which I think is probably a fairly safe state of affairs, a fairly sensible one to be for any Arsenal fan. So
yeah, I think if we, as you say, if we get an early goal or we at least keep it goalless for a while, then we may be growing confidence, and who knows. But if we concede early, like we always seem to, or get a man sent off, as it seems to happen equally frequently at Chelsea, then yeah, it could quite easily be another battering, unfortunately.
It's that confidence again, isn't it? It's that thing about Arsenal, and we've seen it with we just in the time we've doing this pod, it's only a season and a bit, but also of course before that, where things start going wrong and they just don't seem to be able to stem the flow, for want of a better word. They don't seem to be able to stop the goals going in, and that whilst also looking hopeless up front. So that's on the worst days. I mean, there's obviously other days where they scramble a result, but there's something about the Chelsea thing which causes a worry, which obviously we share, and and many others will do. Well, we will be back next week to see how that works out. All right, then. Well, I think we're done for today. So, Matt, thank you very much for your company.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for listening, everyone. And we will be back with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.